For many of the nation's federal politicians, today began, as it always does, in prayer. It was a brief moment of peace before the battle lines were drawn. The Prime Minister wants an economic fight this year, and shortly I'll be speaking with the Treasurer, Wayne Swan. The opposition's focus is on broken promises. Foreign Minister Kevin Rudd is waging a war of his own to regain the top job, and as political editor Heather Hewitt reports, given he could end leadership speculation with a sentence, his silence speaks volumes.
It's one of those long-standing rituals when politicians of all persuasions come together to mark the start of the parliamentary year.
And the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus.
I think it's a wonderful day in Canberra. I think it's good that we've had some time at church this morning. If you've been in the business of politics, you've usually got a lot to confess. And,
are you going to be taking
and you do too, but I guilty look on your face as well. So,
Mr. Rudd, are you going to challenge?
Now, let me see. Where's our car?
Can you rule it out once and for all?
Okay, have a good day, guys. Have fun.
Sometimes it's what's not said that's notable. The man at the centre of leadership speculation for days certainly appeared to be having fun this morning in the absence of his successor, declared atheist Julia Gillard. So too was opposition leader Tony Abbott, later putting on a performance for his colleagues and the cameras in a party room meeting before Parliament kicked off for 2012.
They say they want the political battle to be about the economy. Well, if I can plagiarise for a moment, make my day. Make my day.
So on to the much anticipated question time in the House of Reps. They'd had the long summer break to polish their lines and their questions, yet this was the opposition leader's opening crack, the same theme we seem to have heard an awful lot of last year.
Why did the Prime Minister break the promise she made to the Australian people at the last election, namely, there will be no carbon tax under the government I lead?
The Prime Minister has the call.
It is clear that he means to go on as he did in 2011.
The government might be accused of the same thing when it came to the standard of the Dorothy Dixes from its side.
How is the government building the Australian economy of the future and governing in the interests of working people?
The single biggest debate that we will have in this parliament over this 12 months will be about the economy. We will be acting to build the new economy of the future. I want us to come out a winner in this time of change in the global economy and in our region. On the other side of politics, we understand that in this debate, they're for standing still. They're for the privileged interests of a few rather than the many working families who need to benefit from our resources boom. This is the debate of 2012, and I'm very happy to say to the Leader of the Opposition, bring it on.
Things were starting to warm up and a trend was emerging. The government would be hammering its latest catch cry, building a new economy, and making this the chief battleground. The opposition would be working on the government's perceived weak points, namely broken promises. Expect much more of this in the parliamentary sitting days ahead.
I refer the Prime Minister to her breach of the written contract she made with the member for Denison to introduce mandatory pre-commitments for poker machines by May of this year. And I ask, will the Prime Minister will the Prime Minister guarantee that she won't break any more promises this year?
We will bring to the Parliament the biggest package of changes for problem gambling ever enacted by a national government or national parliament in our nation's history.
The opposition had more up its sleeve. Its favourite hobby horse, the future of the Labor member for DeBell, Craig Thompson, who's under investigation by Fair Work Australia for alleged misuse of union funds.
I refer the Prime Minister to the Fair Work inquiry into the Health Services Union that is now in its 4th year, longer than the Watergate inquiry, longer than the Korean War, longer than it took to build Sydney's Olympic Stadium, and longer than the duration even of the Rudd government, leading some to believe that there's an institutional go-slow to protect her government. As the government relies on the member for Dobell to stay in office, Can the Prime Minister confirm that she still has full confidence in the member for Dobell?
The answer to the member's question is yes, and I would also make the observation to the member that sometimes the opposition says that it wants to criticise the government because it says it's interfered in the Fair Work Australia investigation. Obviously those allegations are untrue, but sometimes the opposition decides to criticise on that basis, and then today they walk into this parliament and say, get right in there and interfere and hurry Fair Work Australia up. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Then came the opposition's irresistible chance to make mischief.
I refer the Foreign Minister to the statement by the Canadian Foreign Minister, Canada having rejected a carbon tax, that carbon trading was like a giant pyramid marketing scheme. Can the Foreign Minister name any other countries imposing a carbon tax comparable to that proposed for Australia?
This side of the House stands for putting a price on carbon. Those on that side of the House stand for putting their head in the sands and ignoring their national and global responsibilities. We're on about preparing Australia for the future. You're about burying Australia in the past. On the pricing of carbon, we should look to the leader of the opposition's multiple statements on his commitment to an emissions trading scheme, a tax at various stages. There's so many positions that he'd make the Kama Sutra redundant.
It was an exuberant response, to say the least, as the Foreign Minister seized upon the opportunity to display his oratory skills.
We are on about putting a price on carbon. Get with the international project.
It's certainly entertained one side of the House, and they'll find it a tempting strategy to maintain.
Heather Ewart with that report.